All right, so in this video we are going to learn two things. First, how to write a quadratic equation when we're given 3 points. And then also we are going to learn how to find the vertex of a parabola using your graphing calculator. So if you actually look in your book, they teach you to write the quadratic equation given 3 points by writing and solving a 3 by 3 system of equations. So for those curriculums that involve solving 3 by 3 systems algebraically by hand, that makes sense to do. For us, because we solved the 3 by 3 systems in our calculator anyway, it doesn't really make sense to write those 3 by 3 equations because if we're going to have to use our calculator anyway, it's a lot quicker to use the regression that we just learned a couple videos ago to find that equation. So I've typed out the steps here, 1 through 4, of what we're going to do in our calculator in order to find that quadratic equation. So I've got the example typed out down here. We're going to write the equation of the quadratic function whose graph passes through -2, -5, 0, -3, and 1, 4. So that's going to be the first set of steps, is finding the actual equation. The second set of steps is going to be to find the coordinates of the vertex, and we'll round if necessary. So you're obviously going to need your graphing calculator here. It says step 1, enter all the x coordinates of the ordered pairs into a list on your calculator. Now, if you need to look back in your notes at more specific directions of how to deal with the list, we did that when I taught you how to do the scatter plots. But here I just kind of gave you hints to refresh your memory. So I go to Stat, and I'm going to choose choice 1. Notice that I've still got data in here because I used that when I was doing the quadratic regression. So remember that you can either go to Stat Choice 4 and clear both lists at the same time, or go to the top and press the Clear button and then scroll down. So I've cleared list 1, press Clear on list 2. After I scroll down, they disappear. So list 1 is supposed to be the x coordinates only. So when I look at this example, I see that my list 1 should have -2, 0, and 1, because those are the x coordinates. So I'm going to go ahead and type those in. So -2, enter, 0, enter, 1, enter. Then I'm going to scroll to my left. It is extremely important that you pair the data correctly, meaning that the order that you enter the data is important. So when I'm listing this L1 and L2, I'm listing each x with its paired y. So -5 has to come first because that's the y that went with the -2. Then the -3 because that went with the 0, and then the 4. So don't try to like put your lists in numerical order or anything like that necessarily because they do have to be paired correctly. So -5, -3, 4. So -5, enter, -3, enter, 4, enter. So I have now done step 1 and step 2. I've entered all the x coordinates, I've entered all the y coordinates. Now I'm going to run a quadratic regression. Again, you can go back to the earlier notes if you need more specific directions, but I'm going to second quit out of that, and then I'm going to go to Stat, scroll right to Calculate, and I'm choosing quadratic regression, which is choice 5. My x list is in L1, my y list is in L2. Then I need to scroll down to tell it to store my regression equation. And alpha trace, I'm going to store it in Y1. Remember that if you have the older model of the calculator, you don't have the alpha trace, and so you instead have to press this vars button here, scroll to Y vars, choose 1 for function, and then choose your value. Sorry, go back into my calculate menu because I was just illustrating for both types there. Of course, now it made it disappear, so alpha trace choice 1, there we go. And then you can scroll to calculate, and it's going to give you your values of A, B, and C. Remember, if yours doesn't have R squared, that's no big deal. We don't need it. We only need the A, the B, and the C. So write the equation of a quadratic function whose graph passes through these 3 points. We can get that straight from our calculator. So it's going to be y equals 2x squared because A was 2. Then my B value is 5, so it'll be plus 5x. And then C is negative 3, so it'll be minus 3. So plus 5x minus 3. So this is the answer to the first part of the question. Second part of the question asks me to find the coordinates of the vertex. So when you are working in your calculator and you want to find the coordinates of the vertex, you're going to go to your second trace menu. So I've taught you how to use a lot of this menu lately. So second trace. So in previous videos, I taught you how to use number 1, number 2, and number 5. Now we're learning number 3 and number 4. Depending on whether your parabola opens up or opens down, that's going to determine whether you do the minimum or maximum. Now, if your A value is positive, it's going to open up. If your A value is negative, it's going to open down. But if you're ever not sure, I already pasted the equation in my y equals screen. There it is. And I can zoom 6 it because I'm not sure if I still have the window from the last example on there. But you can see that this parabola does indeed open up, which means that the vertex is going to be a minimum. So I go to second trace, and this time I'm going to choose minimum. If it opened down, I would choose choice 4 instead. But it works the same way regardless of which one you're using. So this whole left-bound, right-bound thing is the same thing we did when we were finding the x-intercepts. So that just means that your calculator wants you to tell it an x value that is to the left of this vertex. So if I had to eyeball this, it looks like this vertex is maybe at about -1.5 on the x. So if I go, let's say, to -2, so you can either type in -2 and press enter, and yes, that line shows me that is indeed to the left of my vertex. And then right bound, you can either enter manually, like type it in, or you can use your scroll, remember. So here I'm scrolling to the right of the vertex and pressing enter. So as long as your vertex is between the 2 lines or the 2 little arrows here, you can press enter a third time to tell it to guess. And then it tells me that my minimum is at -1.25, -6.125. Now, be careful of your directions. This says round to the nearest 10th. So I'm not actually going to write out exactly what it says here. I'm going to round as my directions tell me. So in this case, my vertex, it's an ordered pair, so the x coordinate would be -1.3 when I round to the nearest 10th, and the y coordinate would be -6.1. All right, so that wraps up all the really important stuff in your second trace menu. Hopefully you feel pretty confident about that, and that's it for now.